Thanks for checking out this highlight from Epic Loot Radio. If you enjoyed this highlight, be sure to click the top link in the description to watch the full podcast. But now, on to the show.
I know Ragnaroki doesn't have a mic, so do you mind if I bring it up for him rather than him being able to talk it?
Yeah,
If he's okay with that? Or they?
Yeah.
I don't want to... Yeah. They've said if XP boosts are considered pay to win, then the 3-day head start for pre-ordering Endwalker should be considered the same. I don't know about that because, for one thing, anyone that's buying Endwalker is going to be pre-ordering it. Early access isn't an early access. It's just a way to say, oh, our servers have crashed. But it's okay. It's technically not live yet. But I don't consider it pay to win because at least for anyone else, I've been charged yet until really before release.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be charged a couple of weeks before it comes out. So I don't know. I don't consider that as the same as pay to win as XP boost.
I actually do.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I actually do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan. I don't like whenever companies sell stuff like early access to their game. This happens a lot with Ubisoft titles, for instance. They always give you that, you buy the deluxe version to get early access. Microsoft did that for a couple of their releases as well. I'm never a fan of that. And I think that in MMO, it is most definitely an advantage, particularly when you have I know that in 14, the culture is not around like the race to realm first and stuff like that. At least I don't get that as much.
That'd be so anti-cultural because we want the story. Racing through the story is one way of getting oh no.
And there are people that do that, but the raids are normally delayed so that those that want to enjoy the story don't have to worry about the world first. Because if it's coming out in November, I'm going to guess the raid isn't going to come out till January. Because they're not going to have it around Christmas.
But think of it like this. So in 14, it's not a big deal to have that early access. I still don't like it personally, but it's not going to be something that's going to prevent me from playing the game, right? But think if World of Warcraft did the same thing, the community would explode.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome, Firebird. Thanks so much for taking the call to just jump into this. I've also posted the link, guys. This is our first call-in.
Hi,
welcome.
I did.
Hello.
And he's got a good microphone. It's awesome.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, when you start streaming during quarantine, you have to. Turns out sound quality matters. So
Oh yeah.
Before you weigh in case we boo your opinion away, what's I'm just
yeah, it's fine.
So you said you're streaming. Where can people find you?
Right now, almost nowhere. Life has been really busy, but normally,
I like this guy already.
/Firebird10112. I've been using this gamer tag since the old school RuneScape days. It was like, how about this? And I was like, that's garbage. Yeah. So, it was originally Mustang Fire. Yeah, no, but over on Twitch, I stream. I've been restarting streaming a game called Lost Odyssey. For the 360, I don't know if
such an incredible game. I love this man. He was lurking, and he's now a part of the show. He will become a staple if he's not too careful.
We had people crying in chat during the first episode. From the first memory that Kaim gets, where the little girl dies. Spoilers.
Don't
straight
talk
up
about
crying.
that.
I actually had tears.
It hurts.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, so I actually, I was telling Brian, I was actually listening for a while and taking a couple of notes. First of all, you mentioned how Eternum has all these different cultures, which means doubloons doesn't work.
Okay.
So coins is better. Just a note. Boo my opinion all you want, but
no, that's fine. I just think coins sounds like such a generic form of currency. Call it gold, or I don't care.
That would be fine. Coins is boring, but I get why. I'm sure it's not a thought that they've had.
Pieces.
Metal,
hunks so garbage.
Crypto. I don't know. Let's do it.
Bitcoin,
Doge.
Doge.
I'd be okay if they dropped little Doge coins. That would make me happy. Can I get that in the paid shop? Can I just turn all my coins into Doge? But so actually, this is an interesting thing because I've been playing. A couple of friends and I've been playing Knockout City just because it's free right now, and it's like a dodgeball 3v3 game that EA put out. I don't know. EA is a garbage company, but the game's actually kind of fun. They've got it out for free right now for the next couple of days. But one of the things we were talking about, so after this period of, I think it's 3 more days or something that it's free, it's going to cost $20 if we want to keep playing it. And then they're going to have a cosmetic store like every game on the planet right now. And one of the things that we've been talking about is like, one, is that good or bad, like just within our little insular group, and two is like how many hours do you need to get out of a game while ignoring that cosmetic store to justify the cost, right? So Knockout's going to cost $20. New World's going to cost 40, right? By the way, New World, if you're listening, give me my fucking alpha key. Sorry for my language, but come on, like this is ridiculous. But you know, one of the things we've talked about, so like where I live, it costs $20 to go to the movies, right? And you're going to go to the movies for 2.5 hours. And is that worth the cost? So for a game, like if you're going to stack it up to the same ratio, is $10 an hour if you get 4 hours out of New World without ever touching that paid shop, whether it's XP boosts, glowy wings, which again, if I never see a glowy wing in this game, I'll be a happy man. I play Path of Exile. I'm so sick of watching people's footsteps tank my frame rate on my 3080. Like I'm sick of it. But you know, do you have to get 40 hours? Do you have to get 80 hours? You know, I've played like probably 300 hours of Final Fantasy XIV. I have literally 700 hours on Destiny 2. Like when it comes to these types of games, like in Destiny 2 is free arguably, but you have to paid expansions, right? How many hours do you have to get to make it worth it if you're ignoring that store altogether, right? Then when you add in this store, like it becomes this question of like, can you ignore it, right? And it's right. And I think it's an interesting thing that you guys brought up with, is it pay to win? It's an MMO, so like arguably other people's experiences don't affect your own as much, right? It's not like something like say Call of Duty where it's, oh, I can pay to get a 2x damage bonus. But you can't, but like, you know, but then they're also adding in these like massive fights, so how are they going to incorporate level capping into that? I think is going to be an interesting, you know, an interesting piece as you get these people that are getting higher and higher levels faster and faster, right? If I can race, you know, the three of you guys and get better gear and then drop into a war against you and go, haha, look what I got. You know, is that now pay to win? Like, because if you, Brian, like, let's say, Brian, you told me, hey, I went out and I bought a double XP bonus because I really wanted to get to level 80 in foraging.
Right.
Cool. Good for you. You made a bad decision, but good for you. Right. Like, I don't care.
You're an adult. You waste your money however you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I play paintball on a team. Like, I have thousands of dollars worth of paintball markers in my closet. It's a waste of money. I don't need all of them, but I like them. Right. They're shiny and they look cool.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same question, I think, you know, like normally, but I think New World is playing this very fine line that games like, I think it was Guild Wars and things like that played as well, and Guild Wars to a certain degree of success, I think, where it's an MMO, but there's also this like very large emphasis on like kind of solo play experience too, where you can go through the story entirely by yourself. You know, that like early access week that they did last year, I played solo that whole week and had a great time. Right. Never touched wars, never touched any of that stuff, and just ignored everything else that was going on in the world and played it like an RPG. So that's sort of, I don't know, like that's kind of where my thinking is like how much my kind of break point on something like a store is how much am I able to ignore it? Right. If I'm okay to just have paid my $40, get my 40 hours out of the game, and then step back and go, I'm done now. Right.
See, that's the thing that I personally, I really don't agree with that particular viewpoint of like equating a certain number of hours to a dollar amount. So for instance, I played a game called Vanquish a long time ago. I bought full retail price for it, which was like $60, something like that. And that game lasted me like 12 hours or something like that. I loved it. I was super happy about my purchase. I never once thought about not playing that game because what matters to me is the quality of the experience. And it's like, it was only 12 hours, felt a little bit short, but it was some action-packed 12 hours of awesomeness, right?
Right.
And that's what matters. So it's like, if I can get 10 hours of really fun gameplay out of New World, then I'd be like, okay, sure, this is good. The problem is when you have a developer like this they're already starting to talk about, oh, we're going to sell boosts and we're going to sell this, we're going to sell that. That doesn't speak to me about someone who's concerned about making a good experience. That's more like someone who's concerned about making an experience with problems to then sell you the solutions.
Absolutely, yeah. It's buying half complete games, and I went on an actual rant on this. I wish I'd got it on stream, but I went on a rant at my friends with this because they were like, "Nah, it's like fine," and I was like, "You have not bought a complete game for the last 10 years. You know, you have bought a game that like has programmed bugs for the last 10 years, and they're gonna sell you DLC to fix it, right?"
Oh, yeah.
But and so like I'm absolutely with you. The dollar amount thing, just to be clear, is like just I'm a science person. Like it's my math brain trying to equate things to like logic, which absolutely
it's
like,
relatable.
games,
I'm going to jump in on that because like it's relatable to know where someone's coming from, especially in games and the games that you referenced. These are persistent world, persistent login. You're getting a lot of multiplayer value out of it. The campaign is the campaign, but then the goal or the value that they're selling you or giving for free, and then hoping that you decide to put money into the other items, is that, hey, yeah, we've got hundreds of hours of that, and then but you can't relate a game like that to a single player experience that might be like a 10-hour beautifully told and wonderfully played story, because it's like sometimes like when a game's like, we've got this epic 60-hour story, and I'm like, I don't have 60 hours. I'll put 60 hours into Final Fantasy.
I'm gonna play 8 hours of that and then have like to go make sure my kid isn't choking on a penny,
right?
Like,
by the way, I also don't really agree with your idea of how the fact that games nowadays are more buggy just to sell you DLC. Games are a lot more complicated than back in the day to program. Therefore, there's more chances for bugs. And also, the gaming industry is a lot bigger than it used to be. So, therefore, there's a bigger audience. So, there's more likely for people to notice the bugs. So, with the complications of the content plus that, and even back in the day, they nickeled and dimed you because of arcades. Content was made harder than it should be just so that you're forced at certain points in the game to throw more money at it. It's why when people were like, excited about arcade crossovers I'm old. I remember when people got excited about when arcade games came to console.
Turtles in Time, baby. Turtles in Time.
Previous games.
Freaking love that game.
I also played the Lion King, what was it, like SNES or whatever game, where it was made impossible because they had to justify the fact that you spent all that money on it. Absolutely. And I'm not trying to say that like necessarily, I'm not trying to be like devs are evil, right? I understand, but like when you get a game, let's say Cyberpunk, that comes out, that has been delayed again and again, and then comes out with like game breaking bugs, right?
Yeah.
That they're like that were like obvious to like literally I played Cyberpunk for an hour and I was like, I can't play this game. There's no way that the devs didn't look at that and go, well, I'll fix it later.
In development, to kind of like set the understanding for everybody, there isn't just one person, right? I'm a developer. I made games before, and I'm hopeful we'll make another one self-published. We'll see. These are things that I haven't, I'm not giving too much detail on, but we'll see in the end. There's the devs, there's the publishers, there's so many people, and especially in AAA games, large groups. So essentially, like the devs, like I always kind of try to separate devs and publishers, because I usually side on and this is just a world experience, on the side of the devs. Yes, people need publishers. There's got to be the money, right? Like these things, like, at some point, me working on this game, I go, I got to feed my family. This isn't paying for that. This isn't my dev time that I'm not getting paid for, doesn't feed the kids and pay the lights and do those things. And then you look at that at a bigger and bigger scale, and publishers want to make sure that they get their investment, because otherwise if they don't, they go under. I've said it before. I think the fact that we have video games, it's a great miracle of our time, and the fact is, like, if you go back to the first time you saw a video game, it's incredible. And then you go look at that video game now as an adult, you're like, that video game probably was garbage. Like, it was probably a hot bag of garbage, but it was still like your experience in this world of possibility.
And about Cyberpunk, by the way, wasn't there loads of rumors about the development team thinking it was going to be delayed another year? Yeah. Like, they were really shocked that they had to release
there's all kinds of stuff going on. But I think for me, it's Rory, you brought up that like they're already talking about monetizing these things. They're already talking about like monetizing solutions to problems that they don't know exist. Mm-hmm. And I think when I hear that, that just for me triggers this feeling of like, what problems are you anticipating? Like, why are you already anticipating problems? You have delayed this game for 6 months. Like, there should be some amount of, I don't know, a surety to the people that have sat there. I have friends who pre-ordered New World and have already gotten refunds for it because they're like, I'm not comfortable with what the
Good.
process is that's going on.
Have pre-ordered it to begin with.
I mean, like, but they pre-ordered it so they could get access to that early weekend. And
I
they were
hate
like, this
that
is fun.
stuff. I hate that.
So
I hate
See,
that.
there you go.
I hate that.
Paying for access.
Yeah.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
But like the thing is, that early access week, it was fun. It was a good time. But then like the process that they're seeing now, where stuff like this is coming, where they're saying, oh yeah, like we're gonna monetize this. It's like, why?
Right.
Like, and you know, so like with the XP boosts, to kind of bring it back to what you guys were talking about before, with the XP boosts, you know, there's this pay to win thought, but then there's also the question of like, is this them trying to even out the pre-order XP bonus thing that you're gonna get? Is this like where is this coming? You know, you guys mentioned when you were talking about it before I got on of, you know, if it's only up to a certain level cap, right? If you're like, okay, we'll let you take this to level 25 to help you catch up to your two friends that are like, dude, come play this game. This game is dope. We need a third person for our party.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever. That's fine. But like, and you know, at that point it should maybe just be like after a certain date that triggers if you make a new account, but you know, that you run into other issues there. But it goes back to, like you guys were saying, is like, why is this already anticipated as an issue, I guess.
One thing I want to come back to on that note, though, is that, like, haven't we already solved that problem with level sync? Like, haven't we already solved that problem in other games? Like, why should anybody have to boost up to me when we can just kind of sync up and play the game together? Playing with friends, I think, is the key aspect. Like, you're right. Dude, come play. Like, the invitation to come play in and of itself shows a good game. People are willing to come in, and then essentially it's like what people are faced with one of two choices. Like, why did your amazing game close down? Well, it didn't make any money, and then they went away. I do, before I go to you, Chili, White Liger says, how much money do you guys think Amazon actually has pumped into New World? I'd say easily like 250 million plus, especially with as much work as there's going on behind the scenes. But what do you think, Chili? You're going to say something?
When you're talking about playing with your friends and no boosts, then I'm going to have to suggest, if you want to do something like that, then go play ESO. Mm-hmm. Because that's the perfect game for that, where everything scales down to you.
Yeah, it figures that out.
Yeah, but ESO is boring as hell, so...
Not the worst.
It's not the worst. There's the box quote. There's the box quote.
Bringing endorsement. It's not the worst.
Listen, man.
Print it on the box.
I have 1,500 hours, no joke, on my 360 stored for Oblivion. I have 800 hours on Skyrim. I logged on to ESO and I have 3 hours in the last 3. And I'm just like,
Chad's saying ESO has a boost as well.
Yeah, ESO does have XP boost.
All right.
MMO but at least you can still do content with friends without it.
I want to roundtable this. I'm really enjoying. Thanks for coming on, Fiverr. This is actually like I really enjoy everybody's perspective because I feel like we kind of there's a different there's a rather than like a one note kind of view. Yes, this is horrible. What's the solution? What like one of the things that frustrated me about I guess the content that was created since kind of this broke is that everybody was just like, this is horrible. But what's the solution? Because essentially, like if the devs don't listen and they just go off and they're like, all right, this was our plan and we executed the plan and the game sucks and nobody plays it, like, all right, moving on. There's a new exciting game right around the corner, I guarantee it. But what's the solution? Like, if you were in charge, you were sitting in the dev room, what would be your planned approach? Obviously, assuming the game is good and people want to play your game. If the game is bad, then none of this matters. Go ahead. I'm going to go with Chili first.
Okay. No boosts. I would get rid of boosts just because I feel like they're not worth it. At least at launch, it should be something that may be planned in 2 or 3 years' time. To catch up mechanic. If you're going to have mounts, make sure that the mounts that come out are just reskin versions of the ones you can earn for free in game, so you don't feel 100% left out, but you can purchase if need be. And I guess skins and dyes, but again, the dyes should not be something you cannot obtain in game. Like, they've got to be all obtainable in game somehow. Though I do understand they do need to make money because servers cost money, devs cost money, it's all costs money. So that would be me. But yeah, as Chaos says, I'd copy the cash shop from 14. That's what I would do, basically. Yeah.
All right, let's go with Rory.
I would have no cash shop whatsoever. Get some goodwill on your players because they're an unproven developer with a title that's already immersed in a bunch of controversy. The easiest solution, because let's face it, Amazon's got money, okay? Amazon's got more money than they know what to do with. Amazon could almost buy the world. Like, just buy a continent if they want to with all those stacks of money. So it's like, they have the money. Buy some goodwill. That's what you do with your money. You sell the game, no cash shop whatsoever, get some goodwill, focus on making the experience fun, and then like a year, 2 years from now, start selling a couple of cosmetics to keep up with server costs. Because let's face it, if the game is successful, like if you're planning for a game to be successful, it's going to make so much money that it's going to easily pay off the first 2 years of server costs and still net a wild amount of profit. Because the thing is, when you have a good game, when a game is successful, it's going to generate word of mouth. Mm-hmm. It's going to generate word of mouth, particularly MMOs, because MMOs are social games. You're going to want to bring your friends in. Those friends are going to be like $40 and another $40. Instead of focusing on these pittance of like, oh man, we got to sell them this $5 shirt. How about just sell another $40 game? It's going to cost $40, right? We've said this, I think.
It's $40, yeah.
Just like sell another $40 game. The price point is actually really good, which is going to make it, it's going to lower the barrier of entry. If people are enjoying the game, and then just focus on making a good game, the game will sell itself. And then like 2 years from now, sell your black dyes, sell whatever skins you want to, whatever. But and no rested XP ever. No fast travel ever. Nothing that can give any kind of in-game advantage whatsoever. And not by their interpretation, by an actual interpretation of someone that understands how MMOs work. But that would be my solution, but that's completely unrealistic because nowadays, unfortunately, all of these development studios are run by the people in sales. Like, you know that Steve Jobs speech that he's done when he talked about Xerox? How it's like people who make a new product, like you make a new copier, who cares? Nobody cares. It can be the best copier in the world. Nobody cares. You sell a better copier. The people in sales that are going around like, you know, actually trying to advertise and whatnot, those are the people that are going to run the company. And this is what happened with Amazon games as well. They're the ones running it. They're the ones deciding, we need a cash shop. We need to make money. Blah, 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 blah. They don't even know if they have a good game yet. And they're just concerned about, we need to make money. They just needs to make money. It's like, first make a good game, then think about how you're going to monetize it. But, you know, like look at Facebook, for instance. Like if you've seen the Social Network movie, you'll know that at the start, they didn't have any ads. Why didn't they have any ads? Because they didn't know what the website was yet. They waited until the website was mega successful. Then they stuffed it full of ads and brought it into the dirt. You know, it is what it is. And it's like 2 years from now, I don't care if the game is bad. I just want to at least enjoy it while it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Fiber, what are your solutions? Like, what would be your ideal setup?
First of all, Rory is very much the Vegas know when to cash out mentality, apparently. Like, just know when to stuff it full of ads. Just give me my money back. Also, I'm a millennial. How dare you ask me to find a solution? God, boomers. All right, but
I'm not a boomer. I'm a freaking millennial.
We're all millennials.
Fine. Excuse me. That's my word. You can't use it.
Effing Gen Zers over here, not knowing what millennials are.
Excuse me.
Have you even paid taxes, whippersnapper? No, go ahead.
Excuse me. You see this beard? My beard's longer than yours. Beard's longer than all three else put together. But no. So I mean, you know, I think probably for me, it's sort of a middle ground between Chili and Rory's, where I don't mind there being a cash shop, but I'm gonna keep quoting other games because it's all I know.
Yeah.
Is, you know, for a game. So for example, for Knockout, like you can buy, or for if any of you guys have ever played like Magic the Gathering Arena, right? Everything is earnable in game. Mm-hmm. Everything. But it takes time, and for me, if you want to leapfrog that time. If you go either I don't care about the time and the money, or I don't have the time, so I just want it, fine. You know, that's just the reality of the games world that we live in. But, you know, at least, you know, and I don't care if it costs, you know, 100 diamonds to buy that die pack or 100,000 coin, right? Give me the option, right? You know, use whatever multiplier you need to sleep at night, you know, on your giant pile of coins. That's fine. I don't care. But, you know, as Chili said, you know, don't give me stuff that changes the game fundamentally. Cosmetics, fine. If you want to reskin my horse to look like a skeleton, fine, right? But don't make it go twice as fast. Don't make don't make that cape that I get to wear give me a 5% XP boost or a 10% attack bonus. Give me something that I can put on, show my friends, go, look how cool this is. They go, you're an idiot. You wasted your money, but yeah, it's cool looking. I like the horns on your skull. Now like that's cool. You look like a demon. And then we move on with our lives, right? Like I said when I first got in here, make it something that I can ignore and still sleep at night, right? The moment it becomes something that can't be ignored is the moment that you've transitioned from a game with a cash shop to a cash shop with a game on it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
Makes perfect sense, right? It's just like,
sense.
oh, do you like ketchup with those fries, or do you like fries with the ketchup? It's the same kind. Like, what's the accent?
Like, yeah, exactly, right. That for me is my ideal. Like, again, I'm always of the mentality of like, live and let live. If what you're doing isn't hurting me or anyone else, then I don't really care, right? Do what you want to do. Date who you want to date. Be who you want to be. I don't care. It doesn't matter, right? But the moment that what you have done starts stepping into my space or somebody else's space, that's where I start drawing a line of, now I can't ignore the fact that, Joe Schmo 83 bought a fireball scroll and wiped out my entire fortress because he was willing to pay $30 for it.
Yeah.
That I can't ignore, right? And that's where I start drawing a line. As for rested XP and stuff like that, frankly, do what you want. I don't care, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, that to me is something that, like, if you give me rested XP for 2 hours because I haven't been able to log in for 3 days because my mom was sick, okay, right? That's fine. I don't care. But, don't make it be, oh, here's 7 days of, double XP. Like, basically balance in all things is sort of where I always try and approach things from. That's me. Oh, and if you are going to make a cash shop, any gamer, any game dev who's listening, Brian, please, for the love of Christ, like, make the math make sense. I'm so sick of cash shops where if I go in to buy 100 diamonds, it's
and then it's like
$1. If I go in to buy 1,000 diamonds, it's $8.73, and I'm like, what the hell? Like,
well, and then also when you purchase
it's
something,
the best value.
It's when it's the value is why they do it, but it's the price of the item that you're purchasing. So you buy 100, and the minimum is 100, but the item you're purchasing is either 110 or 90. So then all of a sudden you're just sitting there with that premium currency, and you're like, all right, how do I ninja getting the thing that I want and not sitting here having? I had the problem 14. Go ahead.
Well, my thing is just don't treat your customers like they're idiots. Like, don't get me wrong, I've met some really dumb gamers. I know some of them. They're great friends of mine. But, like, don't treat us like we're morons. Yeah, hey, how's it going? But don't treat us like we're morons, right? Because we're not. And the moment that somebody feels like they're going to, we're going to blow your game up. We're going to put it on blast, and you're going to lose 10% of your revenue. And, like, it's not going to go well for you, so just don't do it. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're going to do a cash shop, make it balanced and make it honest. Just be real with us about what you're trying to do. Like you guys said, they haven't really released enough stuff about the actual cash shop to go, it is good or bad.
I think they have to focus on the game first and foremost. Like, the fact is that it's good to have the conversation, but I don't think there's anything they can ever say that will go positive or negative. I don't read anything that Amazon has released as negative. I don't receive it as positive, because anything can go either way. Take Swords of Legends Online. They were spending some time, and they spent like 45 minutes or 30 minutes, like felt like forever, on their cash shop on the first day before showing gameplay and talking about anything else. Like, to me, that was the wrong choice.
Their priorities are
right. It tells me that's their priority.
Give us more money.
Well,
it's concerning priorities, to be fair.
Here's how you're going to pay us. Here's how much you're going to pay us, and how.
And this is what you're going to get for it.
Raise them right.
But the core of it is, like, I look at that and I go, actions speak louder than words every single time. And so that, like, what's going on with New World doesn't concern me at all. For me, when we look at it in terms of value, I'm like, I have no problem risking $40. If I get 40 hours out of the game, awesome. What I experienced in the preview, I go, this is fun. And my wife and I were like, yes, let's play this game together. I'm never this guy who gets sucked up by microtransactions. I think overall from a microtransaction is I bought the whale for Final Fantasy XIV, which just came out. And that's because I wanted it. And I'm an adult and I couldn't go to FanFest this year. Anytime I've gotten anything else from Final Fantasy, it's because I went to FanFest and they're like, here's some digital stuff that you get that you can purchase optionally if you can't get a ticket and fly to Vegas. Buying the mount was way cheaper than flying to FanFest and hotels. It was like, this is cool. I'm happy to do that. But I also have over like 5,000 hours in this game. It'd be weird if at the same time that I didn't. I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy XI. I simp for Square. That's who I am. I love their games, and yes, they have gacha games, but I avoid those. All right, if you're gonna nickel and dime,
XPS is a good time, man.
I'll still I just don't engage in that kind of economy. So that's just to set some context for anybody who's listening to this clip or whatever and doesn't understand. I just don't engage in those markets. People obviously do, and that's why those markets exist. I look at it in a pure market economy. So if I was in charge, if I had my wish, I would make the subscription the MMO standard, but it just doesn't work. And people are like, oh, it works for 14 and WoW. No, it doesn't. They have effing cash shops. They have cash
14,
shops.
14, to be clear, 14 is not a subscription model. You have to buy 14 and then subscribe to 14. That's none of us
a subscription model.
Which is why my group doesn't. Well, no, subscription model would be like old school RuneScape, where it's like, here's a membership that you can buy.
The subscription model didn't RuneScape, wasn't it purchasable back in the day? When we talk about old school, it was just you subscribe and no box fee.
It was just you subscribe.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the only game I've ever heard that it works like that, because all of the other subscription model games you always have to buy,
but you get your 30 days or whatever.
14, you have to buy all.
But regardless though, the model in and of itself is for new games that are coming out in all development, even with 14 and WoW. They don't live just off of a subscription. They box, and that I always bundle box and subs together, but the subscription itself, they have the cash shop and they added that in and that exists. And that's, that's the model in and of itself. I would prefer just the subscription only model for all games, but we haven't seen prices go up on subscription models. We haven't seen numbers go up on subscription models. It's not a growing economy. And then when you pair that with something like a Game Pass, so $15 a month for Game Pass versus $15 a month for a single game, it becomes a value proposition that it might be value to Brian or the Final Fantasy subscriber. So a lot of people seem to get it defensive or feel like I'm attacking 14. But essentially, when I'm talking about gaming in general and an economy in general, if you're looking at it as a value, proposition, Game Pass, if you had to make a choice, Game Pass would be 100% what I recommend to any gamer who is not actively an MMO. And that endangers the genre as a whole. If you're not bringing in new blood, eventually everybody, sorry to break it to you, on this panel and watching and listening to this, isn't going to be playing games at some point in the future. It's going to be a possibility. So you got to be bringing in new people. So I think that MMOs, obviously having dropped the subscription, because they also couldn't compete. It's people would be just in WoW and you'd come out with your WoW clone and people would be like, it's not worth it. I'm going to stay where the devil that I know versus the devil that I don't. So it's unfortunate, because that would be the model I think that is ultimately fair. It puts everybody on the same playing field. Everybody on that game pays the same entry fee and it has the same experience, and nobody else has. And then everything from a cash shop that we have today would be in game. It's earnable in game. Maybe it's ridiculous. Maybe you're pissed that to go get that really cool piece of gear, you have to go on some insane quest, but everybody is paying the same entry fee. But being that that's not a reality or a future that I see for the MMO genre, I like the box price. I like the expansion model where you have an expansion dropping once a year, kind of almost like a yearly subscription. Do you want to play all the new content? Here you go. And then between that's where it becomes tricky. What's that between element. Destiny frustrates me with its seasonal model because it has that FOMO, and they really leaned hard into the FOMO for a while. Yeah. They've stepped it back a little bit because essentially, but I just, being that I know as a parent, we kind of brought that up a little bit earlier. Firebird, you talked about you might have to go adjust to do something, on the fly. That's life. I just say I'm just not going to engage in those kind of systems. But I get the appeal to the Battle Pass, because I think the Battle Pass at least says if you play, you get all this stuff. If you don't pay, then you get all this stuff, and then you can decide at some point if you want to pay. So I would say that the model would be like everybody's got a battle pass, the free version, and then if you're ended up like, oh man, I'm really enjoying this, and then they're like, for $10, would you like all this other cool stuff along with it that you've already unlocked? I think that is where we'll see more and more go, because overall gamers get frustrated by loot boxes, and when you look at what EA's done by selling the loot box stuff direct to people for thousands of dollars, because mathematically,
that is so cool.
Mathematically behind the scenes, they're like, we expect that in order that these will generate thousands upon thousands of dollars, because gamers won't get what they want. I think if you had the loot box and you had the ability to trade, then I think that's ultimately fine. PSO2 does this, and for me, it doesn't give me any kind of heartburn, because if you don't get something that you want, somebody else that's the thing that they want, and you can barter with the in-game systems. Thus, people are spending money on the cash shop, and people are getting what they want, and it's engaging in that economy of scale. And so ultimately, like, I don't have a real solution, because they have to get paid. But the only real thing I could say is that, to echo what Rory is, like, focusing on the game, get people excited to play, have people inviting people in, and then have that conversation with the community. However, what I would have done in this situation, if I was in charge, obviously the NDA leak kind of probably kicked this off before maybe they were ready, so to give them a benefit of the doubt slightly in this regards. But let's just say, hey guys, like, we're not launching with the cash shop, but we do have plans to implement something like that in the future. We want people to play in and like the game, and then weigh in on what would make the best value, what would be a fair a fair relationship.
What's missing? What do you guys feel like you want to fill in those gaps?
Right.
See, but at least that would show, different intent, completely different intent. Because from the moment that this happened to them, what was their focus? Control the message, go around, try to make these sentences and make them work in our favor without necessarily compromising us from a legal standpoint. Let's go ahead and do all of the right things, all the right steps, get the community out. Never was their focus on hey, how about, can we go back to developing the game now? No. Sitting on this brainstorm. We got to figure this out. We got to figure out how we're going to spin this story in our favor. It's like, no, stop developing the game. Let's talk about this cash shop. It's like, come on.
Well, the problem is, in the modern world, if you say one thing out of line, I'm sure there's a dozen things that I've already said in the half hour that I've been in this call that somebody could take and post on Twitter, and my life will never be the same, right? Somebody's gonna be like, oh, he has 1,500 hours in Oblivion. He clearly didn't spend enough time in high school doing his work, that kind of stuff. And it's so I agree. It's frustrating that, this message came out of there's a cash shop, and it was okay, figure out how to make this work instead of figure out how to finish the game. But at the same time, I kind of understand why, because if they didn't get on top of it, then letting the internet have a bone to chew on is maybe the worst thing you can do. It's never going to go well for you.
But there's ways and ways of doing things, and if you read because they had two opportunities to address this, because if they had two written posts, and in both those posts you can interpret the things that they are saying. It's very deliberate that they're saying we're gonna sell pay to win stuff at some point. That's what they're saying.
And I don't disagree with you on that. I think, and I don't disagree with you on that. I think that does not send a happy, tingly feeling. It sends the opposite tingly feeling where you go, oh, I think I'm gonna be sick, right? And it's Ragnaroki in the comments. Yeah, I mean, it's.
Go and read the comment if you're going to respond to it, because there are people who listen to this in audio.
Sorry. They said, what do you want them to do? Someone broke the NDA and the internet exploded. They can't just jump back into talking about game development while the internet is exploding about the cash shop.
Yeah, it looks disingenuous. It looks disingenuous. It's like, they're not even willing to talk to us. They're damned if they do, damned if they don't. Hands down,
there's no good way out of this.
Right, and that's where I have problems with internet culture. I live on the internet. I feel like I'm a part of that culture itself, so I have to spend a lot of time going yep, I'm not going to say anything, because no one's in the position to hear it, and no one's in the position to have that rational discussion. The internet, in my opinion, I'm going to be very clear about what I'm about to say, because people get mad at me when I say it, is that it isn't a logic engine, it's an emotional engine. It's an engine built on who has the most emotional response, and thus that's what we're going to reward, positive or negative. Go ahead.
We're the PS2.
That's true. It's true. The emotion engine, absolutely. Good. Well picked up. Took me a second. Awesome. All right, but yeah, Rory, what would you expect them to do? You know, like they didn't have the ability to control the message.
Like you said, just get rid of the cash shop. Like, it's the easiest thing to do. Just like, listen, just tell the community there are plans for a cash shop.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about it at a later time. We're not going to implement a cash shop at launch. Boom, done. Think about it. Is the money that they're going to lose with people refunding this game really going to be worth the few whales that they're going to get? Not to mention the community backlash, the complete destruction of goodwill from their consumer base. Like, is it worth all that? I don't think so. So just get rid of it. Just straight up get rid of it and talk about it at a later date. Boom, done.
You don't understand how much money whales spend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what Amazon. That would be the Amazon reply. They'd come up in the show and they'd be like, "You don't understand how much money we're going to make with this." And I was like, "Okay."
The 1,000 people that are going to refund their purchase. Are you kidding me? We're going to triple them. Like,
exactly.
Like, clearly you haven't played Genshin before. Clearly you haven't seen my bank account after I started playing Genshin.
I haven't spent a dime on Genshin. Just FYI.
How do you feel about having every 5 stars?
I don't have every 5-star, and I feel fine about it. Like, I don't care.
Look at this minnow over here. He's
I don't
adorable.
care. Yeah, I am very cute. my wife finds me attractive, so that's nice. Archman, I know you're here with us. I know you're muted. I don't know if you want to weigh in at all, but I was gonna give you the opportunity. We'll see if they. There we go. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Perfectly loud and clear, man. You're on air.
Great.
What's up?
Wow. Well, first, I'm a huge fan. I watch. I unfortunately don't know Firebird's work or Chili's work, but I watch all of Ruricon's Monster Hunter videos. And Brian, I follow you and Chris. I hope to play 11 with you sometime in the future.
Well, we'll play today if you want to join in, but go ahead. Yeah.
Marty, there's no work of mine to follow. Don't worry about it. Cool.
But
my work is not worth it, so just follow these two.
You're better off.
I found the conversation about time value proposition really interesting, and I think that the reason why it's really hard to equate that to universal is because everyone's time is worth something so different. A person who works a McJob, a sub costs 2 hours of their working day, while other fortunate people, a sub costs me 15 minutes of work.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at it from that perspective, it's really hard to base it on that, particularly given the economic status of a lot of things going around. So I think you always have to base it on what's worth it to the individual and the goodwill of the developer themselves, the track record that they have to think that they're going to bring you something worthwhile in the future, which is why I think that Final Fantasy XIV's cash shop is well received. I recently saw a Twitter post from Bellular Gaming, who he questioned, why do people not flagellate Square Enix for Final Fantasy XIV's cash shop, but they will for Blizzard's cash shop. And I think it's because we've seen time and time again that the 14 devs actually they have goodwill and intent to grow the game, and not just their position as a corporation or to get the stocks and things up.
I want to jump in on that thought, because you bring up a really interesting point in terms of 14 specifically. I am not the only one alone, but could be argued that 1.0 did not have that intent. And that's one of the big things why people love what Yoshi P has done specifically in terms of 2.0. He had to earn the trust back, and that's a big key factor to what I think you're saying here. And correct me if I'm wrong on that regards, but where 1.0 clearly fell on its face, didn't focus in on good gameplay, didn't respect the player's time, trust, and effort, was poorly received, rejected, and basically almost brought about the ruin of Square Enix. And then 2.0 coming around, 3.0 and beyond, Yoshi P and the team focusing on the gamer and the relationship with the gamer, a good game that a gamer can play, step away from, come back and return to, and a cash shop that is not up in your face and always asking for money, but offering value to the players who choose to engage with it that I think is almost a textbook example answer. Not everybody, you'll never get 100% consensus on it, but does that ring true to what you're kind of talking about? Let me know if I got any of that wrong.
No,
Can I jump in here?
Yeah, Rory, go ahead.
So, just real quick, I think it's funny whenever, because I've actually been listening to this throughout this week. I've heard several people say that, oh my God, I can't. Several people that play World of Warcraft express the sentiment, oh, I can't even imagine if our cash shop was as bad as Final Fantasy XIV's. And I'm just sitting here thinking, so wait a minute. Your cash shop literally has incentives for people to subscribe for 6 months, regardless of whether or not they're having fun, like constantly flaunting mounts in front of it. It's like, hey, you can get this mount if you sub for 6 months. And then on top of it, World of Warcraft's cash shop is literally pay to win, which is never discussed. I find this completely insane that nobody ever talks about how World of Warcraft's cash shop is literally pay to win, because you can buy a WoW token, you can sell it for gold, and then you can use that gold to buy and then equip epic pieces from the auction house. So literally pay to win. And they still go and criticize the Final Fantasy XIV store.
You're 100% correct. Nobody looks at it because the WoW token is seen as some the original advertised intent for it was to say, hey, you can play to pay your sub. We're so gracious. Look at us giving the community exactly what they want. But it really is everything that you can see. And even without the proof of intent, my experience with Blizzard tells me that there was insidious behavior to drive it.
Quick. You know what the funny part is not an MMO, but if you look at like the Battle Pass subscription for Call of Duty, for Warzone, that actually pays for itself. Like, no joke, actually pays for itself. Costs like 1,000 COD points.
The same.
Yeah, it costs like 1,000 whatevers, which is like the generic currency in the game. And then you earn 1,300 if you level the Battle Pass all the way up over the course of like 2.5 months. And it's weird because then you compare that to how Blizzard is because they're both owned by Blizzard, how they're doing the WoW shop, like how they mediate the WoW shop, and you go, these cannot be the same people. These are so wildly different in mentality. Like, what the hell? Like, who made this call? Like, whose job is this, and why haven't they looked in the mirror lately?
Before you go, Chili, I want to see if Ragnarok is here because they have a mic now.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, man. Go ahead.
All right, awesome. So I think one thing that has been missed in a lot of this now, I was there for both the original alphas for New World.
Yeah.
Played both of them. I've actually had the game pre-ordered since before it went for $40. So back when it was still free on Amazon.com is when I pre-ordered.
Nice.
One thing we seem to be missing here, they told us over a year ago there was going to be a cash shop.
Mm-hmm.
This was nothing new
to
people who have been following this game for a long period of time.
Correct. 100%.
So having somebody explode on the internet about having a cash shop in the game, we knew this was coming. And quite honestly, like, if they're going to put boosters into the game, XP boosters, as long as they're like 6 months down the road, who cares? Like, everybody's hit max level at that point that started playing in the beginning. What does it matter at that point?
Ragnaraki, I think that the point is about the spirit of the game, right? Like, when I look at a cash shop and I think, if they're going to sell boosts, what is the pillar of the game? And the part of the advertised pillar of New World is player versus player content. And so I think it's disingenuous to allow for purchasable differences for people's experience. Now, if you have a PvE-centric, cooperative-focused game, where if I buy something, it's just going to ultimately help the community, the friends that I play with, the activities that I and others around me do, then it doesn't seem as egregious. And in my opinion, it's not as egregious. But when you have something that's competitive, where your enjoyment of the game is based on victory versus defeat, that's where the line has to be drawn, I personally feel.
But at the same time, like...
Can I...
I'm going to go ahead, Chili, and then let's go back to Ragnarok.
I will add here now that because it's PvP focused, cosmetic stuff will affect a lot more than PvE content. because a lot of the PvP content's shiny, so you're fairly more visible. So technically,
insert
look at that
rose
fancy guy in
skin
the fancy
discussion.
outfit.
Insert rose skin discussion for anybody who's played
Yeah.
COD. Like, you know, it does matter, but
Ragnarok, let's go back to you. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying because it's a PvP focused game, like that's an issue if somebody has an XP boost. But again, like they said, they're not launching these XP boosts at launch. Like they're not going to be there on launch day. So by the time they put these things in, if you're already max level with your gear, whatever you're going to use, what a new player coming in 6 months, a year down the line has to slog through everything because you did? Like, how, like where do you, how are you going to draw a line to say a new player coming in, they have to, I dealt with this terrible leveling system, or I dealt with this, or I dealt with that, so they have to too because they're coming in later.
The point that for me personally, whenever it was about the cash shop, I already knew that New World was going to have a cash shop regardless of them having announced it or not. I didn't know that it had been announced a year ago. The reason that I was upset was the fact that they were talking about selling rested XP and talking about how selling travel, fast travel things would not affect the power of the game, which with it being like a Dominion type game, it clearly affects the power. You being able to travel faster throughout the world is clearly a pay to win mechanic, period. And when it comes to the XP stuff, I just think that first they should focus on having a leveling experience that is fun, and basically selling XP boosters directly contradicts their motivation to do that. So when you have something like that being sold for real currency, you have a definitive incentive to make the leveling worse. And this is something that has happened in a lot of games in the past. Like a super easy example is Diablo 3, like I brought up earlier. It's like you had the what's it called? The friggin' auction house. And the drop rates were completely abysmal. It was terrible, complete garbage because of the fact that it had an auction house to incentivize people to go and use the auction house. That's the problem that I personally have with it. The XP boosters.
I'm gonna jump in on that aspect because there's a couple of things that are said, and on all sides there's a lot of assumptions being made. There's the assumption that the leveling experience is terrible. If somebody wants to go and throw their money at something, like again, I'm not their parent. If they're not spending my money and they want to go and accelerate their leveling experience, it doesn't necessarily equate to a bad leveling experience. However, there is definitely examples where it can and has in the past, which ties back to my rooted question, or the thing that is going and working actively against Amazon at this point in time, is that they have yet to show that they can be trusted, that they continue to listen, and that they have a good game. Now, from what I've experienced and what I've seen them communicate, it lends me to give them the benefit of the doubt. However, that doesn't necessarily mean anything come August 31st. August 31st is brass tacks. How is your game? Is it, are people enjoying your game? And then B, are you going to be a company that follows that up with, good communication, listening, and what I mean, active feedback, because gamers will design the crap out of and make good games bad because, gamers will optimize the fun out of anything. Like that's a theme that I think is a good mantra for this podcast. So it's at the end of the day, it's important to hear and to respond, but it doesn't mean that you're going to implement every possible thing that every player wants in a given time frame. Boosts themselves, as they've said, it's that if it's earnable in game, because in games that I play, even like Final Fantasy XI, an old MMO, subscription only, in terms of its current retail model. At the core of it, you got rings that help increase your EXP, but they're earnable and exchangeable in game by playing the game itself. And so with New World, I'm more apt to give them the benefit of the doubt, but there are obviously risks, and those risks shouldn't be glossed over. And I think it's unfortunate that the NDA was broken, because this wasn't news, but it's only led, in my opinion, to see a lot of people speculate based off of other crappy things that have happened in the past. Just because EA sucks, just because Activision sucks, doesn't necessarily equate to that. But Amazon hasn't given us a reason to trust them. And I would say, and if I was advising any gamer out there, it's be skeptical. If you're on the fence, if you're worried, if this is something that causes you to either not pre-order, which I don't think anybody should pre-order any game. It's like
Yeah.
there's no scarcity of inventory. But beyond that aspect, like if it has you hold. For me, I've already felt like I've gotten enough value that I see that there's definitely a game that I want to experience. Whether it's a game that I want to pour 5,000 hours into or not, honestly, that's on Amazon, and that's my personal take. Ragnarok, I want to let you talk, and then we'll say goodbye to our guests, and we'll wrap up the show. I know we've gone over a little bit longer than I like.
Yeah,
Ragnarok?
sorry, real quick. I actually have to bounce. Like, I just saw what time it is. I actually got to bounce like right now.
Nice to meet you, Bad.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much. This was tons of fun, and hopefully I'll see you guys on the next one.
Absolutely. See you, Fiverr. All right.
See you guys.
Ragnarok.
See you, Fiverr.
You're still there, Ragnarok?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
All right. Go ahead and do your final thought there on that.
Just like two things. One thing I'd said about earlier about if you consider like an XP booster to be pay to win, then like Final Fantasy XIV pre-ordering Endwalker getting that 3-day head start is the same thing.
Same thing.
Guess what?
agree.
At the end of the day,
100%.
I can go in there on the 19th on Final Fantasy XIV. I can play through that story in 20 hours, turn around, level my Disciple Hand and land up in that same 3-day head start.
Mm-hmm.
By the
But the
time
difference is
everybody else that doesn't pre-order that game and gets it on launch day, guess what? I'm already pre-making their high-level gear for Gil to sell to them,
Mm-hmm.
and I already have it on my own character, so I'm already ahead of them
100%.
because
The
I
difference
paid.
is, though, nearly everyone's going to pre-order the game.
We still
and
have
pre-order
brand new
costs-
people
I
coming
don't
into
think-
Final
I
But
don't
Fantasy
his
think
XIV
that's
hold on,
correct.
guys. Time. But his point still being that if you consider
Yeah.
boosts in other
Yeah.
games pay to win, and you don't consider it in Final Fantasy XIV, you might need to look in the mirror.
No, but I completely agree with what he's saying. I've said it earlier that I completely don't like the fact that you get the 3-day head start and all that stuff, and even the whatever percentage earring or whatnot. It's just ultimately Final Fantasy XIV is not a game that I play in a way where that is relevant. Whereas in a game where New World, I feel like that would be much more relevant. But regardless, I completely agree that it is a pay-to-win mechanic, and I am not a fan of it.
Ragnarok, thank you so much for coming on and expressing. I want to let Archimon do their final thought. But you're welcome back on the show anytime. And so far, I'm very happy with how welcoming guests randomly onto the show has turned out. So Ragnarok, dude, please come back and hopefully we can talk some more. I'd love to hear from you.
Alrighty, thank you.
All right, bye.
Nice to meet you.
All right, Archimon, do you want to weigh in with a final thought before we the three of us wrap up today's podcast?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for giving me the last word. I think that part of the reason why I would disagree with his final statement was that, again, Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have a competitive spirit to it. Nobody logs into 14 and says, I win the game because I have the most gil. I mean, some people do that personally, but there is actually no mechanical reward for having the most gil in the game. That's why you see streamers giving away their gil. It doesn't matter anymore to gil. People say it's so easy to make.
Who's giving away their gil?
You need to be. Chris has been giving away his gil, man.
Yeah, giving away gil. Lots of people do that. So because it doesn't have a competitive spirit in that nature to it, where you don't vie for the top competitive spot where you get purchases and
the grand companies don't control different zones, which then give everybody perks. I do still wish we had that, though. I'm not going to lie. I love Conquest back in 11, but go ahead. Can you continue on, please?
No, I guess that was it. It was, I think that would be my final thought is that if you, in 14, it doesn't really do anything except benefit you and your friends to have those advantages because it doesn't detract from anyone else, really.
Yeah.
All of the content is accessible by the most casual players. You can see all of the story, everything, and my lack of gil or surplus of gil doesn't take that away. So I find it a non-equitor to a PvE cooperative focused game for a game that's touted to be about PvP, conquest, etc.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've always kind of said that, pay to win is a very interesting thing because my wife is a collector, and the fact that she likes collecting mounts and things like that when she was playing 14 in this case, had her go the only way to win would be to purchase in that regard. So everybody's going to have that that definition. And the thing is, I always kind of say, same thing with people's opinions. Like, I value everyone's opinion as long as I especially understand the context as to where their opinion is being built on, right? Like when Lazy Peon released his video and review of Final Fantasy XIV originally and received so much hate, I didn't find any problems with his video because he clearly said, like, this is what I like. And other subsequent videos, when he talks about other games, it's easy to be able to understand, like, what his view of a good MMO is. It's not something I align with. I don't agree with his end result, but I think his opinion is completely valid, especially as it relates to that game, as long as I understand the context, right? Like, it would be one thing to say, I've played the entire story, and I'm an expert in the story, and the story's garbage. Like, it's like somebody would be like, wait, like, how did you get to that? You have to then kind of, in a way, like back in the old elementary, like, show your work. Whatever your answer is, yeah, you ended up getting, the answer correct, but how did you get to the answer? Oh, it turns out you guessed. Like, what's the context? Do you understand the source material? Do you understand to be able to have an informed opinion on what you're speaking of? Now, it then would be, if you didn't play the story, to say, like, hey, I really didn't play the story. Story ain't my thing. This is my take on the game. Like, that's a perfectly legitimate kind of take. That's where I find context being king. Archimon, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name. Thank you so much for coming into the show. I really appreciate you weighing in. So,
thanks, guys.
Welcome back anytime. We're gonna end up having a rolling list of those who are welcome to the show. So I'm gonna let's see. It said kick. Learn it. Remove. There we go. All right. Well, I didn't what if I kick and all of a sudden the application, because I'm still learning. Right. What if the application all of a sudden is like, he can never come back in? No, he was fantastic. Like, come back.
It was awesome.
Thank you so much for checking out this highlight from Epic Loot Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe button, and more. And check out our other channels, Ginger Gaming Radio, Ginger Prime, and Work to Game for more content. Thanks for being here, and you're awesome.